The rain was coming down in sheets as I drove home, the wipers of my old Ford struggling to keep up. Chicago always had a way of mirroring my mood, and tonight my mood was as dark and stormy as the sky above. I am Bertram, and at 46 I thought I had life figured out. I was an IT specialist, a bit of a nerd maybe, but I loved my job, loved solving problems, loved the quiet satisfaction of making things work. More than that, I loved my wife, Isolde. We'd been married for 18 years, a lifetime it seemed. We met in college, two awkward souls drawn together by a shared love of old movies and bad pizza. Over the years, we'd built a life, a home, a comfortable routine, or so I thought. The first sign that something was wrong was subtle, almost imperceptible. Isolde started working late more often. She's a marketing manager for a local firm, and I knew her job could be demanding, but these late nights felt different. She was less talkative, more distant. When I asked about her day, she'd give vague answers, her eyes darting away. I chalked it up to stress, told myself I was being paranoid. But the feeling lingered, a knot of unease in my stomach. Then came the phone calls. She'd rush out of the room to answer them, her voice hushed and secretive. When I asked who it was, she'd say it was work, a client, someone she couldn't talk about. I tried to believe her, but the lies were becoming harder to swallow. One night I woke up to find her missing from the bed. I glanced at the clock, 3:17 a.m. I went downstairs, and that's when I heard her voice, a low murmur coming from the living room. I crept closer, my heart pounding in my chest. "I miss you too," she was saying. "I can't wait to see you again." I froze, my blood turning to ice. Who was she talking to? It couldn't be, could it? I know," she continued. "It's hard, but we'll make it work. I promise." I didn't need to hear any more. I backed away, my mind reeling. My wife, the woman I loved, the woman I'd built my life with, was having an affair. The next few days were a blur. I went through the motions, going to work, eating meals, pretending everything was normal. But inside I was crumbling. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't think straight. The image of Isolde whispering sweet nothings into the phone haunted me, replaying in my mind like a broken record. I knew I had to confront her, but I didn't know how. I was afraid of what she'd say, afraid of the truth. But I couldn't live with the uncertainty any longer. One evening after dinner, I took a deep breath and said, "Isolde, we need to talk." She looked at me, her eyes wary. "About what?" "About the phone calls," I said, my voice trembling. "About the late nights, about him." Her face paled. "Bertram, I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't lie to me," I said, my voice rising. "I heard you, Isolde. I heard you on the phone." "Who is he?" She hesitated, her eyes darting around the room. Then she sighed. It's complicated," I repeated, incredulous. "What's complicated about cheating on your husband?" "It's not like that," she said, her voice defensive. It just happened," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Did you just trip and fall into his arms?" She flinched. "Don't be like that, Bertram. You're making this harder than it needs to be." "Harder," I said, my voice cracking. "You're the one who made this hard, Isolde. You're the one who betrayed me." She started to cry. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said, her voice choked with sobs. "It's just I don't know. I've been feeling unfulfilled lately, like something's missing." "Unfulfilled," I repeated, my anger rising again. "What about me, Isolde? Didn't I fulfill you? Didn't I give you everything you wanted?" She didn't answer. She just sat there crying, her face buried in her hands. "Who is he?" I asked again, my voice softer this time. "Tell me, Isolde, I need to know." She hesitated, then whispered, It's Barnaby from work." "Barnaby." The name hit me like a punch to the gut. Barnaby was Isolde's subordinate, a young, ambitious guy who joined her team a few months ago. I'd met him a few times at company events. He always seemed a little too eager to please, a little too attentive to Isolde. I'd dismissed it as him trying to climb the corporate ladder. I'd been so blind. "Barnaby," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "You're having an affair with Barnaby." She nodded, her face still buried in her hands. I stood up, my legs shaking. "I need to get some air," I said, and walked out of the house, leaving her there, alone with her guilt. I drove aimlessly for hours, the rain still falling, the streets of Chicago blurring into a hazy mess. I couldn't believe this was happening. My life, my marriage, everything I'd worked for was crumbling around me. I thought about Isolde, about the years we'd spent together, about the love I thought we shared. How could she do this to me? How could she betray me like this? And then I thought about Barnaby, the young upstart who'd stolen my wife. I imagined him laughing, gloating, enjoying his victory. A wave of anger washed over me, so intense it felt like I was going to explode. I knew I couldn't let this go. I couldn't just sit back and let them destroy my life. I needed to do something, anything, to fight back. But what? The next few weeks were a living hell. Isolde moved into the guest room and we barely spoke. The house felt cold and empty, filled with unspoken accusations and simmering resentment. I felt like a stranger in my own home. I spent hours online, searching for answers, for advice, for some way to make sense of what was happening. I stumbled across forums for people who'd been cheated on, stories of betrayal and heartbreak that mirrored my own. It was a small comfort knowing I wasn't alone, but it didn't ease the pain. One night I came across a post about a private investigator, someone who could gather evidence, uncover the truth, and help me get justice. It was a long shot, but I was desperate. I contacted the investigator, a woman named Elara, and told her my story. Elara was professional and discreet. She listened patiently, asked probing questions, and assured me she could help. I hired her, giving her as much information as I could about Isolde and Barnaby. I knew it was a risk, but I had to know the full extent of their betrayal. Days turned into weeks, and I waited anxiously for Elara's report. I tried to focus on work, but my mind kept drifting back to Isolde and Barnaby. I imagined them together, laughing, kissing, sharing secrets. The thought made my stomach churn. Finally, Elara called. "I have something you need to see," she said, her voice serious. "Can you meet me at my office tomorrow?" I couldn't sleep that night, my mind racing with anticipation and dread. What had Elara found? What secrets would she reveal? The next morning I arrived at Elara's office, my hands clammy, my heart pounding. She led me into a small conference room and handed me a thick file. "This is everything," she said. "Photos, emails, text messages, everything." I opened the file and started to read. The evidence was damning. Photos of Isolde and Barnaby holding hands, kissing, entering a hotel together. Emails filled with romantic declarations and explicit details of their affair. Text messages arranging secret meetings and rendezvous. I felt sick to my stomach. The betrayal was even worse than I'd imagined. They'd been planning this for months, sneaking around behind my back, laughing at me behind my back. I felt like a fool, a naive idiot who'd been completely blind to what was happening right under his nose. But there was more. As I continued to read, I discovered something even more shocking. Isolde and Barnaby weren't just having an affair. They were planning to leave me, to run away together and start a new life. They'd been secretly siphoning money from our joint account, planning to use it to fund their escape. I couldn't believe it. The woman I'd loved, the woman I'd trusted, was not only cheating on me but also stealing from me. The betrayal was complete. A wave of anger washed over me, so intense it felt like I was going to explode. I wanted to scream, to shout, to destroy everything in sight. But then a different emotion washed over me. Resolve. I wouldn't let them get away with this. I wouldn't let them steal my money, my life, my happiness. I would fight back and I would win. I spent the next few days working with Elara and a lawyer to build my case. We gathered evidence, documented the theft, and prepared for a legal battle. I was determined to make Isolde and Barnaby pay for what they'd done. Finally, the day came when I confronted Isolde. I walked into the guest room where she'd been living and handed her the file. "Read this," I said, my voice cold and hard. She looked at me, her eyes filled with fear. She opened the file and started to read. As she read, her face paled, her hands trembling. What is this?" she stammered. "It's the truth," I said. "It's the evidence of your betrayal. Photos, the emails, the text messages, everything." She started to cry. "Bertram, I can explain," she said, her voice pleading. "Explain what?" I said, my voice rising. "Explain how you could cheat on me. Explain how you could steal from me. Explain how you could plan to run away with that loser." She didn't answer. She just sat there crying, her face buried in her hands. "I'm filing for divorce," I said, my voice firm. "And I'm pressing charges for theft. You and Barnaby will pay for what you've done." She looked up at me, her eyes filled with despair. "Bertram, please," she begged. "Don't do this. I am sorry. I made a mistake. I still love you." "Love," I repeated, my voice dripping with sarcasm. If this is love, I don't want it. You've destroyed everything, Isolde. There's nothing left. I turned and walked out of the room, leaving her there, alone with her shame and regret. The divorce was messy and bitter. Isolde tried to deny the affair, tried to downplay the theft, but the evidence was overwhelming. The judge ruled in my favor, granting me a generous settlement and ordering Isolde to repay the stolen funds. Barnaby also faced consequences. He was fired from his job, his reputation ruined. His wife left him, taking their children with her. He became a pariah, shunned by his friends and family. Isolde and Barnaby's dream of a new life together was shattered. They were left with nothing but regret and recrimination. As for me, I was left with a broken heart and a shattered life. But I was also left with a sense of closure and a determination to rebuild. It took time, but I eventually healed. I found a new job, a new home, a new sense of purpose. I learned a valuable lesson, that love can be blind, that betrayal can come from the most unexpected places, and that even in the darkest of times it's possible to find strength and resilience. Years passed. I moved on, found happiness again, and eventually remarried. One day I received a letter. It was from Isolde. She wrote about how much she regretted her actions, how she had lost everything, and how she understood the pain she had caused me. She ended the letter by saying she hoped I could find it in my heart to forgive her. I thought about it for a long time. Forgiveness is a complex thing. It doesn't excuse the wrong that was done, but it can free you from the bitterness and resentment that can poison your soul. In the end, I decided to forgive Isolde, not for her sake, but for my own. I never saw her again, but I heard through mutual friends that she was living a quiet life, working a simple job, and trying to make amends for her past mistakes. Barnaby, I heard, had moved to another state and was working as a janitor. Karma, it seemed, had a way of catching up with people. My story is a cautionary tale, a reminder that even the most stable relationships can be vulnerable to betrayal. But it's also a story of resilience, of the human capacity to overcome adversity and find happiness again, even after the most devastating of losses. It's a reminder that even when life throws you the cruelest curveballs, you can pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and start again. And that, in the end, is the greatest revenge of all.